And, I don't have Picasso quotes. I don't even have sort of cool memes or anything like that, but I do have Slayer. Who here's a Slayer fan? Not so many. No. Fair play. So in thinking about fast, I got thinking about Slayer, partly because they're fast, partly because they're intense, and partly because I wondered whether maybe a bit of a hypothesis behind the question of fast strategy is maybe we sort of suspect somewhere deep down, it's sort of a dark place, really. Maybe fast is kind of evil. Maybe it's kind of bad. Maybe it's kind of dark. I don't know. But it got me thinking about this. I used to kind of quite like Slayer. And then it got me thinking, and I definitely quite like fast. And it got me thinking, if fast is a little bit like Slayer, and this is what we're doing as fast strategy, maybe what's my version of it? I think my version is a little bit sort of like this. Bear with this. I kind of think that is fucking brilliant on so many levels. And I think that that's sort of a bit what the fast strategy is a bit like, right? So, yes, you've kind of got the bedrock, Slayer, it's fast, got it. But this is a guy, he's into it. He's into it, he's doing it on the banjo, this is his thing. It's personal. And sort of there's a sort of sense of liberation I get. He's let it go. That clip's kind of got over 9 million views on it, right? So he's doing something right. But I think there's sort of certain things that we can learn. And as Malcolm McLaren kind of put it, too fast to live, too long to die. It's like this strategy is an adventure. Life's an adventure. This job is fun. It's only fucking advertising at the end of the day, right? No one's going to die. So we should be sort of embracing that spirit of freedom, that sort of sense of fun. Strangely, that sense of banjo playing Slayer. Of all the things I never thought I'd do in my career would be playing clips of someone playing Slayer on a banjo, I have to say. But it could be worse. So, and I think there's sort of an existential question, really, at the heart of all of this, which is sort of a little bit like Kahneman versus Nen. It's sort of an epic tension at the heart of all of this, right? So, as Daniel put it, if his Nobel Prize winner, he's sort of saying an author of Thinking Fast and Slow. If there's time to reflect, slowing down is likely to be a good idea. So that's one version of a truth. Another version of a truth is Mr. Nen, not a Nobel Prize winner yet, but founder of Lucky Generals, all-round kick-ass strategist, and knows quite a lot about doing stuff quickly as a sort of founding Lucky Generals a startup. Who sort of points out we need to think quicker. It's not about cutting corners, it's about cutting crap. And that, for me, sort of hits it squarely on the head. But I want to approach this epic existential battle through the medium of music tonight. So bear with this. And specifically, I want to sort of talk about these two. Who's got Chinese Democracy, the album? Nah, not so many, even less than Slayer. What about Nirvana? Okay, we've got a couple. Okay, so the thing about these two, both extraordinary bits of work in their own way for entirely different reasons. So Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy, took 14 years to make across 15 studios, cost over $13 million, also had 3 guitarists, one of whom was sort of, for the train spotters out there, was Brian May. I never knew that until doing this. Nirvana, 1 studio, 2 weeks, 15 million sold. I think Guns N' Roses sold about 1.5, but took a lot longer to make. But more pointedly, one is generic, one's iconic. And ultimately, I think my point is that a lot of fast strategy can get you to this stuff. A lot of slow strategy runs the risk of genericness because you think too much. So my provocation is that there is nothing to fear. Be the banjo person. So here's 5 ways that I try and sort of play the banjo, I suppose, doing this gig. So I think, firstly, 5 tips. So strategists and planners are known as the brains, I guess, the great thinkers. But sometimes I think thinking gets in the way of thinking. So I think certainly thinking gets in the way of great thinking. And actually the route to better thinking is to unthink. Because we need to stop being right and we need to start being more radical. And I think this is kind of where I do have some sympathy with some of the stuff Lucy was saying. I think first thing is to trust your gut. Your gut is not a bad thing. It's a brilliant thing made up of millions and billions of decisions that you've made over the course of your life. So trust it, listen to it, write the shit down, whether it's on a post-it note or a bit of paper or whatever. Capture that stuff. Then what I've always found useful is to kind of flip it and ask quite quickly some sort of unquestions. So what would your audience never do? What are the assumptions you can challenge? What would your audience never be seen, who would never be seen dead with your brand? What's missing in your audience life? What stops people doing what they could or should? What would your brand never do? Etc, etc. I've got a list of 30 of these fuckers. Right? It doesn't really matter. It's not scientific. Well, you could try and create a framework around it and productize it and make loads of money, but I haven't done that yet. So this is all free. It's good shit. But the point is, it forces you out of your comfort zone, whatever that is. Right? So you listen to your gut. You've got that. That's fine. Then do the opposite. Kind of just test yourself. It's just a way of quickly torture. So don't spend, I don't try and spend too long. It's like literally an hour, half an hour, and just like literally, like it is the equivalent of the vomit first draft. Plus it's fun. So that approach, I think, is sort of the singer-songwriter approach. The second approach, I think, is slightly more George Martin-y, which is just riff. Which is similar to the other guys that are saying, like, you listen to yourself, but for God's sake, listen to others as well. So, it is the phone a friend thing. Listen to your mum, talk to the cleaner, taxi drivers, anyone that's on the team, creatives. I mean, usually, what I've always found is that generally the greatest strategic thoughts don't come from strategists. Strategists are brilliant at stealing it. Strategists are brilliant at interpreting it, they're brilliant at making it make sense, but often the best thinking comes from people without the word strategy in their title. So I'd just riff with whoever's around, ideally the team on the project, but just kind of go wide, go crazy, because everyone needs their George Martin, really, don't they? Whether or not they get to Sergeant Pepper-esque qualities. Right, okay, so the third thing. Simple or else, right? So topsy-turvy world. So the thing about thinking is it makes simple things really complicated very quickly, especially if your only job is paid to think. And it becomes a little bit like prog rock, I think. Certainly did, someone got the reference, that's good. And prog rock is bad. That is evil. That is one form of intolerable music. As obviously anyone that liked, and that's why punk came along, right? It's straight after prog rock is a sort of the antithesis of the thing. So brutally simple, pick up a fucking guitar or whatever, bang it, play it, turn it louder. And I think, we are going through a punk moment in our industry, and a lot of what clients are looking for are kind of the things that they can't do themselves, and that is more radical, it is more punky. So embrace simplicity. Or to put it a different way, what's the insight or the strategy in one line? Like, it's equivalent to writing your final page first. So I always try and do, quite quickly, try and work that out. What the fuck am I saying? Really, when you boil it right down, what is it? This is our particular creative brief. It's fairly pointy. The bit I always force, as Nish will know, force everyone to do is to work out not so much the blah blah bits, but what is the tension and what's the truth. It's kind of what Lucy was saying. Everyone's got their own different language for it, but I just find it super useful to force people to kind of go, okay, ultimately, what's an interesting point of view in one sentence, and what is the role for our brand? Not a product, what's the role for our brand in solving that? That's just and that for me helps create a really simple framework in terms of a strategy and what are we actually arguing for. Other people, you'll have your own frameworks, that's fine. There's not a right way of doing this. I think my point is it forces simplicity. It's a way of us brutalising the argument. at Publicis. So, fourth, embrace the strange. Barry quote. That can come from anywhere. Walls are your friend, be mental. It allows sort of a lot, I love just kind of, it does look like some mad person has been in, when you do a pitch wall, I love that, where there's just all sorts of bits of stimulus all over the place. So just embrace crazy, really. Probably the most important thing actually isn't the strategy at all. The way to sell, to do stuff fast and to get organizations to mobilize around it, which in itself is a real art, is just to make it sizzle. So this isn't sort of a fast strategy, but it's actually the way to make strategy happen fastest. Or to put it differently, like one cool reference beats 100 sort of charts, really. So find a film, find a photo, find a clip, find a YouTube thing, find a film, find a bit of comedy, but often they're the best way to get everyone to go, aha, that's what you're on about. Right, it's like that. And that, the thing is that words don't fly, he says with words on the screen. God, I should have thought about that. But words don't fly, whereas stories do. And so your reference is the best way of quite quickly getting everyone to kind of go, yes, that's the thing. So I think that's my take on it, and this is basically from Slayer to being Slayers. So that's it.